Chase Robinson is the executive director of First Coast Crime Stoppers, and I apologize that we don't have walk-up music for you yet, but we will figure out what we're going to use for you.
I'm excited for that.
You should have walk-up music.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hey.
We should make a parody of Mr. Robinson instead.
Oh, there we go. That sounds good.
Here's to you, Mr. Robinson.
There we go. And then you hear my lovely voice.
Here is to you, Mr. Robinson, because you, in the break, were telling me that you guys over at First Coast Crime Stoppers have achieved a pretty remarkable milestone.
So through a lot of hard work through our team, our board of directors, our website and our reach has really developed to where we are the most visited Crime Stopper website in the state at the moment, and right now number 2 in the world. So
wow, who's at number 1?
Right now it's Houston Crime Stoppers, and we're not too far behind. So I'm hoping maybe by the end of this year, pushing next year, we'll be world number 1, world champs. So.
And that's all for a good reason. It's not because there's more crime. It's because more people are saying something, right?
Exactly. And doing things like this right now, getting the message of Crime Stoppers, what we offer to the community, I think just allowing people to come to our website, fccrimestoppers.com, look around at a lot of the unsolved crimes happening in our area, whether they've happened over the weekend or 10 years ago. We're trying to make it a resource for anyone that might know anything. And when it comes to the 6-county Metro Jacksonville area, we try to stay on top of all of that and really just provide that access to information, which can unlock memories that people might not know that they ever had.
It's been a while since we visited while you have been involved with Crime Stoppers. It's probably been over a year. So tell us how you did become involved with Crime Stoppers.
So I kind of worked my way up, if you will. So I started part-time, just working in the office, seeing if I had this attachment for Crime Stoppers and what the organization did, really learning the ins and outs of the anonymity, why people are anonymous, the breadth of Crime Stoppers as a whole, both in the state and nationwide, and really just worked my way up the office manager and then eventually now executive director. And I'm very thankful that I did that because I've been able to see sort of every step in the Crime Stopper process, from the processing of tips to managing the financials to all of these community outreach events that we do. And I think taking all that into consideration, I'm very thankful, especially for our previous executive director, Wiley Hodges, really setting that foundation for the organization. And really, I'm just trying to build up that tempo, if you will, and really just make it a phenomenal program, both for Jacksonville, the state of Florida, and right now, worldwide.
And Wiley you had said that he was very welcoming of the influx of youth. I'm not going to say what you said he said, but you can say it on the air.
Everyone loves Wiley. He was a role model to me and to the organization. But as everyone knows, and he himself described himself as a dinosaur, and he was a true cowboy, if you will. Picture a cowboy riding a dinosaur. That was Mr. Wiley Hodges. But really, the next phase of not just Crime Stoppers, but really society as a whole is really embracing the digital aspect of life, social media, how people consume information now. People tend to turn to social media and websites rather than, say, print media or magazines. It's not, doesn't make it obsolete. It's just people are changing the way that they consume information. And I think what my role has been is take the foundation that Wiley built and really bring us into the 21st century, bring us onto the social media platform. When people search us on search engines, that we're one of the first entities that pop up, optimizing SEO optimization, things like that, to where you might not necessarily think that can play a role in how people reach our organization, but we're kind of seeing the impact of that. And we just completed our most recent fiscal year, and the impact that we're having and the amount of people that are using our program is increasing year over year. And
there is a family connection as well, too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, my grandfather was the first tips coordinator. So when I was little, knee-high to a grasshopper, trying to pretend I was doing tips on the on a notepad, pretending I was my grandfather. So it's interesting to see it come full circle there, and really just carry on the legacy that he helped build.
That's really cute. If you can ever dig up a picture of that would be really great.
Oh, I mean, I'm probably about the same height. I haven't really grown much since then, but I'll try to find that.
That would be really, really fantastic, because this really is in your blood. Isn't it funny that, and probably very rewarding, pardon the pun, but very rewarding to do something that has been a lifelong passion for you?
Well, and I'm born and raised in Jacksonville. This is my home. It's the home I've always known. And to be able to work in a grassroots nonprofit organization, to see the results happen directly in the neighborhoods and streets that I drive every single day, that's really rewarding, because every dollar, every tip, every impact we have is affecting everyone that lives in Jacksonville. And to be able to see that is really rewarding. And yeah, when you really reminisce, back 20 years ago, it's funny to see it come full circle. And for me to be able to have that impact, it's really rewarding.
That's incredibly sweet. You did mention grassroots nonprofit. There is a perception by some that Crime Stoppers, whether it's First Coast Crime Stoppers or other Crime Stoppers organizations around the country or around the world, are operating as a sidearm of law enforcement, that they receive federal funding for all of their tips and programs and administration. That is not the case, right?
No, it's not. We are all registered nonprofit organizations, and based off of our Crime Stopper Trust Fund, at least here in the state of Florida, that means in terms of that funding, we're not funded by taxpayer dollars. They are convicted criminals paying court fines to potentially arrest future criminals. So it's a pretty unique system, and I think having us be that independent third-party nonprofit is what incentivizes people to utilize us if they're hesitant to go to law enforcement, because every law enforcement agency, because they're a public entity, are subject to public record laws. Whereas
searches.
Exactly. And whereas we are not, and there's actually 3 Florida statutes that protect people who utilize a Crime Stopper agency for reporting criminal information. So you never wind up in front of a judge or on a witness stand or being involved in the investigative process. You truly are removed from that. And it's simply just a flow of information on what you might know, what you heard, attaching pictures, images, and that's really what I hope to really get people open to the idea about just seeing what they see, what they hear, and you never know what might come out of that.
So that's really important, from not just a funding, but also the independence part of that, because you are never subjected to, and I'm just going to say this in a way that everybody can kind of understand, a cop knocking on your door and saying, hand over the witness list. Tell us who robbed this bank. Tell us who talked to you and told you, because we need to go question that person. That is never going to happen with Crime Stoppers.
That will never happen. And we've been serving Jacksonville and the Metro Jacksonville area for, 26 years now. So, and over that 26 years, we've never compromised the identity of a tipster. And what I really like to make the distinction of is our tipsters are anonymous, not confidential. So if our tipsters were confidential, we would have some database of names and addresses and IP addresses and be able to look up where people live, what they're doing. And that's simply just not the case. All of the technology that we use blocks and washes all of that, whereas our tipsters are anonymous because we simply don't have that information. So there's no possible way for law enforcement to ever come to your door, knock on your door, ask you more questions, because your identity is never known. It's not known to us. It's not known to law enforcement. Therefore, it will never be known to the community.
Successful redaction of information, which we could argue in this world could be used by some other agencies as well, because you guys have seemed to have gotten it down. But, say, and I don't want to wish this on anybody, but say like a neighbor was the victim of a crime and somebody called and said, hey, my cousin stole X, Y, and Z from Chase Robinson's neighbor. As the executive director, you can't go, hey, it's me, I'm the executive director, give me the information.
No, so, and you kind of made a good distinction there. So we take our tipsters' anonymity very seriously, to the point where we even protect the tipsters from themselves. So if a neighbor is talking about something in the area, or they're talking about something that their cousin did, well, they are indirectly identifying themselves. A good detective or even a good defense attorney can backdoor that information and lead that to you. What we actually do on every single tip that comes in, the roughly 3,000 tips we get every single year, we are looking for keywords like that. We'll actually change that so it's an individual was doing XYZ, or this person at this address was doing XYZ. So we're protecting the tipsters from themselves, along with all of the technology and cloud-based software we use to wipe any identifying information.
So see how simple that could be to identify yourself inadvertently. You can say, I saw so-and-so on my way home from work at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So now you've identified yourself, who's someone who is on their way home at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, traveling that road. Someone who's working, who obviously saw that person. So I think that's great that people can be protected from themselves, in essence.
Anonymity is priority number one for us. And that's why I tell people all the time, it's not just a catchphrase, and it's not just a word that has a bunch of vowels in it that's hard to pronounce. It really is sacred, and we try to protect that in every aspect. And that's really what I think should incentivize people. Of course, cash rewards is a great incentive tool as well, but the fact that you can make a difference in your community, quite literally making it safer to walk outside your door, to walk along the sidewalk, for your kids to go to school, you can have that difference. You can make that difference and not be involved in the entire process. And I think that's really what should open people, their minds up to speaking up about things that make them uncomfortable, things that happen in their community. If there's gunshots at parties, if there's suspicious people going in and out of buildings selling drugs, the breadth of the ability for you to submit information is, if it's illegal and someone can be arrested for it, you can submit that information to Crime Stoppers.
And even if it's not illegal, but you just get the sense that something, like your spidey senses are, you want to hear that as well, right?
Exactly. Well, and that plays into a fact of human trafficking, missing persons. So you can make a difference. So whether something isn't directly, you're not watching someone steal a bicycle, you're not watching gunfire go off, and something just makes you feel uncomfortable. You notice something weird about a passenger in the back seat, or someone's, the way they're acting in public, whether there's a person with them that is restricting their ability to express themselves or act certain ways. There's little triggers and little tidbits there that you can submit, that what you see, the person that you were witnessing, where they were, that information can be combined with other information from people just like you to really put the puzzle piece together to ultimately lead to potential rescuing of someone who's been a victim of human trafficking, or any numerous ideas of different cases.
I make no secret of the fact that I was kidnapped for 6 months, and it always surprises me. There were so many people who saw things that were strange and never said anything to anyone. And I was in the same place for almost 6 months, and no one said a thing. If just one person had spoken up, it would have ended 6 months of torture.
Well, and if they spoke up and say they contacted a Crime Stopper agency, there's no penalty, there's no retribution if it doesn't lead to anything. And that's really what we want to create, as a safe environment for the flow of information between the community and law enforcement. Because if someone just reported what made them uncomfortable, what they might have seen, you could have been rescued sooner. You never know. Or worst case scenario, they investigate it, nothing happens. There's no penalty for submitting information that won't for sure lead to an arrest. It's just that flow of information that, might not lead to an arrest now, but combined with other tips that people have submitted, other pieces of information could rescue someone from a terrible situation, or really create a case towards getting someone arrested for another crime.
My guest is Chase Robinson. He is the executive director of First Coast Crime Stoppers. What are some of let's talk about cold cases first, that you are working on now, some of the bigger ones?
So we've been partnering with Project Cold Case, which is another nonprofit in our area, and we've been doing these digital cold case press conferences where we have members of the family come into our digital studio and really provide their unfiltered and really realistic approach of what happened to the community. And I think that's really important, because when these cold cases that we're talking about, whether they're 5, 10, 15, 20 years old, hearing directly from the family and the pain that they've experienced over that 20-year, say, period, I think speaks volumes to the tipsters, or to the people out there that might know something. And these cold case press conferences that we've been doing, we see tips come in after we do these conferences, and that's really what I hope to gain by it. But also, I feel these families, once homicide cases go cold, they're pushed to the bottom of the list. There's other cases that are higher priority, or other active cases that have a higher chance of being solved. And a lot of these families feel like they're left on the back burner. And after 20 years of being felt like you're on the back burner, that can really really damage your psyche, or even the thought that, hey, an arrest might never be made. So just allowing these families to really voice their hearts, voice their emotions, and show people that, sure, say one person was murdered, but you've affected the lives of countless people that are family, friends, relatives. And I think seeing that and having people the opportunity to see that should really open up their eyes to think about what they might have seen on a homicide case, 20, 25 years ago.
And it gives them closure, because that is part of the healing process. Not knowing is sometimes worse than knowing, exactly what happened. And we do have so many people. We were talking earlier about people who have moved recently to this area. You might be experiencing something or seeing something that you don't know when you first move here is not normal, right? And then maybe you're here 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and you go, I've never seen that again. That was really weird. Maybe that information is valuable to speak up, like, hey, I never noticed that car before, but it was here for like 2 weeks and nobody ever said anything. And now that I've been here 6 months, I know that car didn't belong there.
Yeah, well, and sometimes there's this notion of, oh, well, that happened 3 months ago. That can't be important now, right? That was
they would have known. They would have taken care of it.
Yeah, if it was an issue, they would have came and they would have addressed it. But to be honest, a lot of the cases that we see, if people would have reported something like that, you could have prevented a slew of crimes that have happened, whether it was a blue car with this license plate and you took a picture of it and you wanted to submit that picture to see, hey, this car was acting kind of weird about 2 months ago. And with the technology that the police have with license plate reading technology, they can be able to link that to other crimes that were committed using that same vehicle, or to be able to track and build up a case to eventually lead to an arrest. So I think it's important for people to take that time element out of when things are occurring. And I know we deal with things in our daily lives of, oh, that happened a long time ago, I don't want to deal with that anymore. But when it comes to crimes or criminal cases, any sort of information, regardless of how much time has passed, could be vital. It could be the one piece of information that a detective has been waiting weeks, months, years for, and it finally, arrives on their laptop within minutes of you submitting a tip.
We talked about the fact that law enforcement can't ask you, or the legal system can't ask you for information, or they can ask you, but you won't give it to them, for information that's identifying information. But there is cooperation between First Coast Crime Stoppers and law enforcement agencies. If someone has a tip and they, by mistake, call 911 instead of First Coast Crime Stoppers, does that tip get to you?
So, in a nutshell, no, it won't get to us. So that's why we always tell people, if there's an immediate threat to life or an immediate threat to the community, just immediately call 911. That's always the best avenue to go down. However, when someone submits information to Crime Stoppers, within minutes it's being relayed to the correct law enforcement agency, and it's being combined with tips that, say, other agencies have received from multiple different avenues, whether it's direct investigations by the detectives, tips from their version of tips lines on their platforms. So it's a lot of moving parts, but the only tips that we directly interact with are some ones submitted through our program. But because we work with over 20 different law enforcement agencies in the area, we're doing all that sifting for the tipsters. So knowing whether, if it's a vehicular homicide, to go to a police department, a sheriff's office, a Florida Highway Patrol, whether it's a municipality police department, or if it's going to the sheriff's office. So we really sift through all of that. So quite literally within minutes of you relaying that information, it's on the laptop or the phone of someone who can investigate that and make a difference. It really cuts out that bureaucratic process of tips being filtered through individuals and emails and the chance of it being lost. It's being routed directly to people who can impact the community and make a difference.
So active thing, life-threatening situation, call 911. If you happen to notice something as a part of that, that you're actually not actively involved in it yourself, but you're watching, then you can also call tips afterward.
Yeah, so what we tell people is call 911, because that's the best avenue to either amend or prevent any loss of life. And that's ultimately what we want. We don't want anyone to suffer from any injuries or any potential injuries that have happened. But once that phone call is made, you can immediately call Crime Stoppers after, and any information about what you saw, what you heard leading up to that point, all of that will remain anonymous and aid in the investigative process to bring justice to whatever person or persons was involved and was injured at the time. Now, our call center, we do have the ability to relay information directly to 911 to dispatch officers, but we don't want to take on that responsibility. We really want that to be the 911 dispatchers, because that's ultimately what's going to lead to the most effective and efficient way to prevent loss of life.
Does that happen often?
It does happen, believe it or not. Depending on the crime, we will see where our call center has dispatched officers to specific areas. And once again, it's not Crime Stoppers isn't the one dispatching the officers. We're going through the law enforcement agency with the tipster. So once again, it's completely anonymous, but it's just the ability to act on information that could have a threat to life. And we see this a lot with threats in schools, and those need to be acted on within seconds. And having that communication and that relationship we do with all the agencies, it's quite literally, a couple minutes before a principal is confronting a student about what they said, or a resource officer is searching a bag about a potential weapon.
Somebody had asked me in reference to our segments with you from First Coast Crime Stoppers, do people need to keep hearing this information? And I said, absolutely, yes. We have new people moving here every day, but it also has to be part of our default mechanisms of when we see something. So, after 9/11, we're all see something, say something. Some of us were that way before that. If anybody has military training, especially, or law enforcement training, they were always that way. But after 9/11, that changed things. It was really funny because over this past weekend, it wasn't funny, but I was traveling and I was in South Carolina. I was filling up with gas. There was a car on fire. And so I ran over to make sure everybody was okay. People were pulling stuff out of the vehicle because the front of the car was on fire. So, is everyone okay? Yes, everyone's okay. Two of the guys who were helping to pull stuff out of the thing were off-duty volunteer firefighters.
Wow.
I said, did anybody call 911? Nobody had called 911.
Wow.
They were taking stuff out of the car. Nobody called 911.
Wow, okay.
None of the probably 24 people at this point who are now watching this fire happen. So I was like, I'll call 911. It had been going on for 3, 4, 5 minutes. The car had started to, for anyone who knows when there's a car fire, if you hear the horn, that means there's going to be some kind of explosion oftentimes. And the horn had started making noise.
Wow. Okay.
Like, get away. But nobody had called on 911. And so I think it's really important that we revisit these things and make it our default. You need to call 911. You need to call Crime Stoppers, a tips line when you see something, because every minute is important.
Well, and I think it goes back to even some psychology there of the group mindset where, someone else is going to do it.
Right.
Or someone already has done it. I don't need to do it.
Or we're too busy taking video.
Oh, yeah. Or that. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's, I think that default mindset of I need to do something about this. And it doesn't matter if someone calls 911 5 times about the same thing or submits a Crime Stopper tip, 5 times about the same thing. It's just having that default ability to just report what you say. And I think having that in our community, we would see a big change in the speed at which criminals are caught and cases are cleared. And also, I think in cases like that, you'd see the speed of 911 and
no explosion.
Yeah, no explosion. And if someone was hurt, they'd be able to be fixed up pretty speedily there. So,
before I let you go, for more information, where can people go and how do they report tips?
So easiest is * tips on your mobile phone. You can also dial our hotline at 1-866-845-TIPS. Visit fccrimestoppers.com or download our P3 Tips app to any smart device.
And we'll include all of this on our website. Chase Robinson, Executive Director, First Coast Crime Stoppers. Thanks for joining us.
Of course, thank you.